Hi, I'm Dr. Mike, PhD of theological muscleology from the University of Body Pillows in Tokyo, Japan. And today we have Majorian, the miraculous minister of meticulous hypertrophic hypertrophy, on the show. How are you doing, Majorian?
I'm doing great, Dr. Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully. You recently came to my attention because you have this ultimate guide to Chad Catholicism bodybuilding hypertrophy program. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit while the
Yeah.
viewers, come in?
Yeah, I mean it's I don't know if it's quite all those words, but it's a pretty comprehensive program. So I have three specific programs. There's a 3-day split, which is full body. There's a 4-day split, which is an upper lower split, and there's a 5-day, which is an upper lower Arnold's combo. And it's all linked in my bio, my Twitter, which is the @ down there. But it has like my progression method too, which is kind of complicated and overcomplicated, but it is I of course you got to prescribe trend. Um I'm so ready. I've been so excited for this one. Um anyways, program, it has that progression method in it. It's basically just I call it the infinite progression glitch, because if you just do it, you'll just keep progressing forever. Um it's it's a it's a system to kind of purposely avoid plateaus that you build up as you're going. You slow down your project progress intentionally to keep going forever. So basically, you'll be able to bench like 1,000 pounds in a month if you follow follow the system.
So the notes I sent you, the first one is weightlifting as a hermeneutic to understand the whole of reality of our current day. But to understand this, we must understand what is RPE and why it is literally the most important thing in the whole world before we can apply it to everything.
Yeah. So RPA is a very commonly used system in the, it's not just bodybuilding, but it's also like powerlifting community. It means rate of perceived exertion, which is it's how you measure how hard you're working on any given step. I don't use RPE. I only have it on my programs because they made me put it on there in boost camp. But essentially, what it is it'll tell you from a rating of 1 to 10 how hard you're working on that set, and 10 is like the hardest. And if you look at my programs, how I have them set up, they're all set up at 10, right? Because we want to be going to failure. And currently, I think we live in a culture that's hovering around like RP 6, or you just you're doing enough, but not enough to actually get a good stimulus, because really the only reps that actually make you grow are like the last 3 when you get a really good stimulus. Okay. Tappy's trying to save that for Crash Cannon. I'm going to do that on Crash Cannon. So basically, our modern society is just on cruise control. We have RP 6. I know I should have been sleeveless. That's unfortunate. And what we need to do as a society is we need to live in a theology of max effort. The saints, when they lived their lives at RPE 10, 0 reps in reserve. But the modern person fears any sort of discomfort more than they fear sin. But like the body, I'm about to cook here. Like the body, the soul only grows under pressure. It needs progressive overload. Yeah.
That I have to agree. I've been thinking about this recently. What does RPE 10 look like? And we'll get to this later, but one of the reasons why I wanted to get to this whole video was I was thinking of the religious hippie and how her beating lust program sounded to me like an RPE 6 or 7 program. It didn't really inspire me. And when I think about beating lust, I think about St. Francis of Assisi at RPE 10 jumping into a bush of thorny roses. That is what RPE 10 looks like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that whole religious interfaith dialogue, that whole religious hippie thing, it's the typical. They always have the same like solutions for beating lust. It's always like, oh, have an accountability partner. You just need to cut down how much you're using. No, you just need to go to confession every single time you sin. Don't wait 2 weeks. The idea that you need to go to confession every 2 weeks on the dot or every month or whatever is dumb. When you commit a mortal sin, go to confession like immediately, as soon as you can. And it's the same. The whole nofap community is a noob trap. It is a noob trap. All right. You get these people, and the fitness community does this too. And there's literally accounts on the fitness community that is dedicated to being noob traps. It's V Shred, Greg Doucette, what's the one? Athlete X. There's a bunch of them. Joe Jarrell is the Catholic fitness noob trap. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. This
is fantastic. I wanted to ask you this question. I didn't know how to pose it, so I didn't write it down. But you already answered it. I was going to ask you, is Athlete X a part of the noob trap?
Yes. So you'll see they'll recycle the same 5 videos over and again. They will never actually teach you how to progress, because that requires more buy-in than just what the noobs will do. So essentially, when you're lifting weights, there is a certain amount of progress you can get just by kind of messing around in the gym, just by doing basic stuff, doing a bro split. You can make a certain amount of progress doing a bro split. But to progress past that intermediate stage, you need to do what's called periodization. You need to actually have a program that is well set up, that works, and you need to be working with intensity over time. You need to program smart. And what these channels will do is they'll just give you enough. They'll give you the basic tools, but they won't give you anything past the basic tools. So you'll get people, and they'll hit this intermediate wall, and once they hit that wall, they will, they'll keep going for a while, and then they'll get discouraged. They'll quit. And then like maybe a year later, they'll be like, oh yeah, I should start lifting again. They'll start lifting again, hit the wall again. And it's just a cycle. And it's the same thing with like these kind of videos, with the people, trying to beat lust. They'll have their freaking nofap streaks, and they'll reach, it's always like they'll reach like 2 weeks max. All right. And then they'll quit, like they'll fail. And then they're back to the vow and actually mean it, like a solemn vow, and actually mean it. That's how you beat that. You need to make a firm commitment. Hey, I'm going to lift until I can hit 315, or hey, I'm going to stop these sins of the flesh. Make that firm commitment, actually mean what you say, and just do it. Like it's at the same at the same day, at the same, like you have free will. You were given the gift of free will, and you can choose to use that free will, or you can choose to just let the world happen to you. And I'm autistically ranting right now. It just pisses me off. The noob trap is a huge thing, and it's both in the theological world. You have these noob channels. I think like Trent Horn, Religious Hippie, that's Catholic Inc. They're the noob channels. And then you get some more niche, but it's the same in the fitness world. You have the noob channels. You have Athlete X, Greg Doucette, Mike Israetel was turned into one of them. And yeah, yeah, really just don't. Yeah, go ahead.
We have a question in the chat. Is lifting to failure an immortal sin?
True. Yes.
The answer is yes. I agree. And that's why these videos, which you actually responded to very well on your last video you did on last live stream on Monday, where you responded with the thing that is missed so frequently. You must replace bad habits with good habits. But the problem I see is this. That is never talked about except by Mike Pentel, and it kind of ruined every single thought that I had this week. If you have RPE 10 as something you can achieve in your daily and spiritual life, these problems of lust really go away. What
Yeah.
is RPE 10 in our
Yeah, I mean,
normal life?
yeah, I think a lot of staying busy is a huge thing, you know? And there's an RPE 10 in your life, like you can, you know, accomplish things with your career, you can accomplish things with, you know, your family, your relationships, you know, get a girlfriend actually, some of you guys, um, you know, do some stuff with your life. And then there's also your spiritual life, right? So there's the RPA 10 in your spiritual life. That's, you know, actually going to daily mass. It's going to be XSPX. Yes, he is.
We have to actually go through though. What is daily mass? Is it the squat, the deadlift, or the bench press?
Well, it's, you know, oh, that's a good question. Which builds the most mass? Now this is dependent on person. I think generally most people are moving the most mass literally uh doing their deadlift. I think most people their deadlift is their heaviest lift. I think for some people though, squat is their heaviest lift. Um and I don't think it's bench press for everybody. Bench press is probably the most anabolic of the three, but I'm going to make a confession here guys, live on air. I don't do any of the three. So I don't do any of the big three movements. I'm sorry. I know I'm a fake lifter. Um, my favorite of those three is deadlifts. Deadlifts is probably my highest of the three. But I do incline Smith bench pretty much exclusively. I do belt squat pretty much exclusively, and I do RDLs pretty much exclusively. And sometimes I'll put in the other variations to keep myself going, but you know, you got to do what builds the most mass.
Yeah, but you need to answer this question, or else the rest of the comments on the religious hippie didn't make sense.
Okay. High rep burpees or other calisthenics. I like well, burpees don't really have much overload, but they're probably good cardio. Calisthenics I love. I do pull-ups all the time. I love dips. Um
Yes, this is true. This is true. Do something with my life? No. No, the point of the question was, what is the rosary, what is confession, and what is attending mass in the big 3? Because
yeah.
everybody says the same thing. They say, if you just pray the rosary, you will beat all of your sins. If you just do the squat, you will build a huge body. If you just do the deadlift, you will not grow your back. They say these things, but in reality, those 3 are the 3 pinnacles of the Latin religious life: mass, confession, and the rosary. But as we will discuss later in the fatigue management part, this actually makes you fall into the noob trap, which is probably the smartest thing that content creators have ever created.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean it's a way to get a continuous audience, you know. So if you keep appealing to the normies and you don't let them progress past the normie status, because 90% of people who go into the gym will never progress past the intermediate stage just because they don't want it enough. They just don't want it enough. And it's the same in Catholic YouTube. 90% will just stay at the surface level. They'll go to Sunday Mass. If they go to Sunday Mass, they'll go to Christmas, Easter Mass, probably, usually. Usually you can give them at least 2 days a year. They might do one confession a year. Um, generally, people don't progress past the beginner level. So if you cater your content towards the people who are stuck at that beginner level, and you don't allow them to progress past that, then you just have a continuous stream of people consuming your content, and they'll just keep coming back and coming back. It's the best way to have a broad audience.
So in bodybuilding, we learn specificity versus generalization. We tend to pick some exercise movements over others. We have hypertrophy for growing our body and powerlifting for growing our strength. In the spiritual realm, do we have both of these as well? We have hypertrophy, praying the rosary, and powerlifting, attending the sacraments.
Yeah, I
What?
mean, there's quite a
What?
bit there.
Okay, just keep going.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I read the note wrong. Because the powerlifting is supposed to be apologetics, but anyway,
Hey,
But it
hey.
seems to me that there's also the contemplative and versus apologetic style to life, and that we need to understand ourselves and to learn whether we need to specialize. Why is specificity in there? It should be specialize. We need to specialize our Catholic time like our gym time, or generalize our Catholic time like our gym time.
Yeah. You need a mixture of both. So every good program, you have your heavy compounds, which target multiple muscles, and then you have specific exercises to address your weak points. So like for me right now, I'm trying to grow my shoulders. So every day, literally every day that I'm training my shoulders. Um, Shoulders you can get away with training every day because they're a small muscle group. Depends on what muscle group you're going into. That's a tangent. Um, you need a mixture of both because you can't, if you try to just train every single muscle individually, you'd be in the gym for hours, right? So you do need a mixture of both. You need a mixture of the apologetics and you need a mixture of the more in-depth theological content and actually going into getting the sacraments. Um, and you know, you don't grow in virtue by just trying to be a good person. You grow by performing specific actions and practices that help you with that. So daily rosary, confession, Friday fast, avoiding near occasions of sin. That's how you actually grow in virtue. And some people, what they'll do is they'll hide their effort in generalization. They'll just focus on the compounds, they'll stick with the compounds forever, and they'll hide any sort of thing that actually challenges them individually um, to progress. And it's the same in kind of the apologetics versus going to the sacraments, living out the faith sphere. You have people who will just, especially new converts, they'll come in and they'll want to be an apologist. They'll just hyperfixate, they'll only consume apologetics content, but they don't actually learn how how do you actually live out the faith? And that's what's important. Taffy has a good question. Who do you think has higher T levels, Sede Picante or Nick Cavazos? I mean, I think we can just judge them by the quality of their beards. So I'll just let that, I'll just answer with that. That's all I'm going to say.
The answer to this question and all questions concerning how do I get bigger is steroids. By the way, I was going to put this in as well, but I didn't know how to put this in. In this analogy of the spiritual life and the physical life, we do actually have to take into fact genetics, things that we cannot see. And so we see these where's that in the self-selection section? I don't remember. My mind really doesn't work well with this stuff. Anyway, why don't we just go to a commercial? Yay, let's go to a commercial. Do you want big gains? Well, then you need big beads for big gains. Yes, that's right. Big prayers reach big gains for a big spiritual life. That's right. All you need is one of these 50-pound rosaries, and we guarantee the body your wife wants you to have. And now, back to the show, which we are not in, apparently. There we go.
Yeah, go buy a Black Monk Rosary, guys. He lifts. He's cool. He follows me on Twitter.
The main thing that bothers me about this whole religious hippie content, the norminess, and understanding RPE is actually what is only discussed by the experts in the commercial gym or in the gyms, and that is recovery. A recovery from your action of attending the sacraments, of praying, and the concept of junk volume. And how do we address junk volume not only in the gym, but also in our prayer life?
Yeah. I mean, junk volume is a huge thing. And I tried my best when I was actually making those programs to make sure there isn't any. Essentially, junk volume is when you go to the gym and you have all these sets where you're not really tied in, they're not really hypertrophic, you're just kind of going through the motions. And this happens in your spiritual life as well, where You're going to church. Maybe you're even going to daily mass, but you're not actually participating in mass. You're not praying through mass. You're just going through the motions. You're just sitting there. You're not listening to the homily. You're just kind of sitting there, absorbing what's going on, but you're not actually absorbing what's going on. You're just there. You're going through the motions. You're not actually living out your life. There's ways to address this. In bodybuilding, what you do is you would, if you're going through a phase where you have a lot of junk volume and you're not actually seeing the gains you want to see, what I typically do is I'll do some kind of program audit, right? And I'll look through my program. I'll see what's working, what's not. I'll look back at previous programs and see, hey, this program worked really well for growing my shoulders here. This one worked really well for chest. Maybe I need to switch up my volume. Maybe I'm doing too much here, not doing enough there. I'm not getting the benefits I want. And I think you can do that in your spiritual life too, where you audit what your habits are. Are you praying every day? Are you playing a rosary every day? Are you having a daily examen? Are you going to mass? Are you partaking in the sacraments? And I think you need to actually audit what you're doing, because, fatigue is part of the process. Everybody will get fatigued. It's just part of it. And if it's also just a part of, like, when you go to the gym, fatigue is necessary. If you're not tired afterwards, wasn't a good workout. So you plan out your volume, if that makes sense. Like, plan out your prayer life. Make a plan, stick to the plan. Don't make a plan and then not stick to it. That's gay. Just do what you say you're going to do. Don't be gay.
And fatigue management, though, seems to be one of the biggest problems that I've uncovered in this. I've known many people and parents to children, and they will be laying these big burdens on their children, saying, oh, these are the prayers we're doing, especially for Lent. And oh, now we need to do more prayers. Now we need to give everyone a daily holy hour. And you will see this burden being laid up on them. And I do this myself sometimes during Lent, not last Lent. I did really good last Lent. Oh, and what often happens is they get a horrible religious fatigue, as even Mike Pentel recently said about going to the Novus Ordo. And the result is you hate your religion. And in the gym, you understand this very simply. I lifted the weights one day. I came back 2 days later. I could not lift the weights. I did not recover. I did not make progress. Instead, I learned to hate the gym. Why do you think this is so unknown, it seems to me, in Catholic circles, where they just always say, more is better, always?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah. I mean, you'll get people who just came into the church, and they'll have the craziest prayer rituals ever. My advice typically is take something you can do. And it's the same, like, you go to the gym, you load 315 on the bar. First time you're ever been in the gym. You load 315 on the bar, on the bench press. You try and do that, it will not go well. And it's the same in this life. Yes. Yeah. It's the same in this life. You try, and it's your first time, you just converted, and you try and do the Angelus, you try and do the Rosary, you try to do 16 freaking novenas. It's not going to go well for you. You can't keep adding more and more and more. You need to build up over time. It's this most important thing for growth is progressive overload. And you can do that in the spiritual life. You need to have progressive overload. It's about consistency over time and constantly improving on yourself and increasing your tonnage over time. Now, sometimes you need to deload. Sometimes you need to reduce that tonnage. If you have
Am I the one who's lagging, or are you?
It's definitely me.
Okay,
I'm in a thunderstorm. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I completely agree, but the thing that I find so interesting is that I've done this many years in a row where I'll be like, okay, I'll go from 5 decades of the Rosary to 20. This is back when I was Novus Ordo. And then for Lent. And then I would get through the third week of Lent and be like, why am I praying 20 decades of the Rosary? And then I would stop praying 20 decades of the rosary and change it halfway through. And I did this many Lents in a row. I was told all you have to do is pray the rosary and all your problems go away. Just like all you do is bench press and all the chicks love you. And all of a sudden you realize your triceps are the one that's lagging. So there's ego lifting in the physical world versus ego lifting in the spiritual intellectual world. You're not a great saint. You're not here to ego lift. You are here to do reps, 99% of us. What do you have to say about those people who essentially ego lift their way to fame in the spiritual realm? Cough, cough,
Yeah.
religious be.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have people, and it's not about, their prayer life or anything. They'll just the freaking misfits. They'll take pictures of themselves and post themselves in front of altars or icons or whatever. You'll have people trying to memorize Aquinas when they don't even pray the rosary every day. The freaking Thomist, man. Stop calling yourself a Thomist. You're not a Thomist. Stop it. We're having a total shutdown on Thomas until we can figure out what's going on with them, because it's ridiculous at this point. And you'll have people, and they do the Thomas thing because it gives them this perceived era of authority or intelligence. The problem is they are misinterpreting Aquinas half the time, and they're not actually living out their faith. It's the same with like the ortho bros that I clown all the time, right? There's these guys online who, say they're Orthodox, they don't actually go to church. It's all about ego, and we need to shut that ego down. In the gym, I could go into the gym, I could slap up a ridiculous weight in the bar, I could move it like this much, and I could say, hey, I'm lifting that weight. Technically, I am lifting that weight, right? But that weight is not actually doing anything for me, right? So I could also go open up the Summa, flip to a random page, say, oh, I'm quoting Thomas Aquinas. I'm a Thomist now. Is that actually doing anything for me? Or am I just doing that for clout?
Most of us seem to be doing it for clout, especially on the internet. St. Thomas had the Bible memorized because St. Thomas is excess, what we should be. Junk volume was not junk volume for him because St. Thomas was on steroids, spiritual steroids called like divine inspiration or something. It seems that there's a certain problem, though, in Catholicism that is so it is never addressed properly in my mind. And that is the self-selection bias of most people of how to live your life. They will always give you, oh, look at my life or a great saint. And it's like, am I the 1% or am I the 99%? Why isn't there a thing between? So how does one find their role in the gym and then in the church according or to, just some general thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when they first start lifting weights, they're like, I'm going to be a Mr. Olympia competitor, or I'm going to be a great power lifter or whatever. And I'm sorry, most of you people, your genetics, it's just not going to happen. It's the 1% of the 1%, right? And our goal as Catholics is to be a saint, right? But that doesn't mean we're going to be Thomas Aquinas, all right? There's levels to this, all right? The 1% who you want to strive to be, and I think we should strive for greatness. You write your own standard. They don't go by anybody else's rules. They make their own rules, all right? They obey their decisions, not the emotions that they have. You don't wait to feel something. You don't wait for something that feels right. You just kind of do things until they feel right. And it's hard to find that niche for you. There's a huge self-selection in Catholicism. There's like, oh, I go to the SSPX, or I'm a Byzantine Catholic who hates the TLM, or there's all these like niches, and you gotta get out of that. It's just gay. All right, it's catty. It's high school. Just stop.
It's true, but there's another interesting point that is lost on the majority of people, especially where we reside on Twitter, and that is the priests have a role in this selection. And if you're not a priest, maybe your place in the selection is much lower. And it's an issue that I see continuously, and it actually made me change a lot of things I do about my content, just like I'm not Mike, what's his name? The guy with the leg, Mike. Who's the guy in the 70s with the leg? Who was doing all the leg exercises?
Mike
Platt.
Menser or Tom
Platts.
Platts?
Tom
Tom
Platts.
Platts.
See, I'm not Tom Platts. I can't go to failure like that. I tried it once and I couldn't walk for 2 days and I said, never again. That's not me. I will not ever push that issue that hard. One must know who they are and understand how to use the gym, what they can use. And this lesson, which seems so lost on a great number of people, for example, our dear enemy Kennedy Hall, who continuously pontificates about theology, but is himself not a theologian.
Yeah.
It is like a fat man pontificating how to get a 350-pound bench press. He says, lift more, eat more, and sleep. Congratulations. Any idiot can say these words. It has
Yeah.
no credibility. So, what does it take to be a true professional? It is to balance between self criticism and self appreciation in the gym.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, anybody who's been lifting for a long time can tell you their weak points like that, like immediately. For me, shoulders. Shoulders are terrible. Um, I have terrible triceps. If you look at all my programs, it's like 90% triceps. I can name like 5 other weak points. You need to be aware of your weak points. You also need to have some intellectual humility. Like, if you live too far from the gym, should you move so your family can attend, or is having a gym at your home good enough? I see where you're going with that question. I read the subtext there. Oh yeah, I'm always pontificating about the gym. That's what I do.
Grover, this stream is meant to be an example of how two people who are on very different sides theologically can talk about a common issue that we both enjoy. And this can be done on economics, politics, working out, styles, and life choices, but is so infrequently done.
Yeah.
That Sede Picante has to read across the aisle to go, hey guys, we're all human beings. Can we all be human beings every once in a while? And
Yeah.
yes, we love the gym.
We do love the gym. Yeah. I mean, just intellectual humility. The gym analogy is killing me. Intellectual humility, all right? Just if you don't know something, you don't need to be the authority on everything. You don't need to talk about everything. Let's say you're on Twitter, right? And you have a mutual who has a different theological viewpoints as you. And they're talking about whatever, let's say it's a Novus Ordo guy and he's friends with a Byzantine guy, all right? And the Byzantine guys talk about like how great the Byzantine mass is and, you know, whatever. You don't need to comment on that. You don't need to counter signal your friends. You can just be quiet. You don't need to comment on everything that's going on in the church. You can just be quiet. It's you don't have to. You can choose to try and grow your brand or whatever. But if you keep pushing people away, keep self-selecting into these niches, you're going to find yourself alone. You're going to find yourself into a niche of one, right? And I think we see this with some of these apologists nowadays where they are just, I mean, how many people has Voice of Reason kicked out of the church in the past like month? I mean, like everybody at this point. So you're going to end up on an island. It's just bad. It's not good.
But there's enough fish in the sea that this island will always feed you. This is why we spend half of the time annoying the Catholic Inc., and Catholic Inc. spends half of the time blocking us. And it just goes to show you that we're not taking this seriously as human beings towards one another. Avoiding Babylon runs away from Anthony Padua Rad Trad, while we sit around and have to recreate our accounts because we get so unhinged angry at what other people say. It's a work in progress. So,
you know, sometimes you get injured, you know, sometimes you have to restart, right?
So what about genetic outliers versus honest limits of what a normie can do? We talked about that, but Now apply it to the spiritual life. We oftentimes have this opinion, it seems, and I remember this at Franciscan University. Oh, do you know about the dark night of the soul? It's coming for you. Go on retreat this semester. It's coming for you. I ain't never had no dark night of the soul. Probably never will. But we have to talk about this. If something bad happened to me, I must tell everyone I'm being attacked by the devil himself. Why is it? And that's the question. Why is it that people have this idea that because they can go to the gym and Arnold can go to the gym, I will become Arnold?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a question, right? There's this idea, it's literally it's in the Bible, if you guys would open it up instead of reading Aquinas, that we have different spiritual gifts, right? Not everybody is going to be tasked to be the great Twitter apologist. I know everybody's trying to be the great Twitter apologist. That's not everybody's niche. Some of y'all just need to shut up and live the life.
Yes, we do. And now he's frozen completely on my stream. Is he going to disappear? Is he even there anymore? I don't see him anymore. Yeah, I think he ran away. Oh, he ran away. Oh yeah, he's afraid. Okay. Yeah. So this guy, we should just like close out, right? This guy is Majorian. He does a podcast with a few other guys. It's like another normie Catholic podcast. Nothing special, nothing interesting. It happens. It's on Monday. They're a bunch of nice guys. We're going to go over to Salacast. We'll be over to Salacast at some point. Yeah, oh yeah, he's running away. He's running away. We got another one. This is what Sades do. Sades come in and just that would be the other voice. Sades come in and destroy all their opponents. That was about as much as I wanted to cover. It was not a Salacast. This is a Sede Picante reaching out across the aisle to find new friends cast. Oops. And we're back.
I hit my power button on my computer.
Oh.
Okay. It's voice of reason. He's hacked into my computer. He shut it down. Oy vey. We were getting too spicy. I don't even know where we were.
We were about to close it up because I actually have another podcast run off to in like a half an hour. So in about 7 minutes or so, can we run away? I mean,
yes.
The thing I found interesting though about this whole idea of applying the gym life to my spiritual life is these things about the dishonesty of who I am and what I should be doing. See, a priest has a certain moral authority, just like someone who can bench 405. That he says be pure, that priest is pure. He benches 405. He says lift in more infrequently, then you lift more infrequently. Versus what we actually see is, oh, the priest said these words in this order. Now I'm going to say those words in this order and tell everybody what a great thing it is to be a Catholic. And it's like, that doesn't ring true. The Religious Hippies video was 100% accurate. And it was like, I don't care.
It's the wrong.
I've heard all
this
person.
Before. It's the wrong person saying it. She gave like advice for finding a husband in her most recent video, right? Or not finding a husband, finding a wife. She gave advice to guys on how to find a wife. Just because you can give advice on something doesn't mean you're the right person to give advice on something. Like I could give advice on how to deal with being bald. I'm obviously not bald. That's not doesn't make sense coming from me. You don't have to do this. And I know why they do this. They do it to get clout. They do it to continue getting their views going. And I get it. But at the same time, you have a responsibility if you're a creator to your audience, right? Like now, obviously people have their own individual lives and they make their own decisions, but you are responsible for what you put on the internet, and you will be held accountable for that when you're judged eventually. Yeah,
and that is one of the most scary things
Oh yeah.
It's the lack of, I mean, I don't know how many sins everyone commits on the internet, but like sometimes people really play fast and loose with this. I'm a Catholic comedian and I'm just giving advice because I just wanted to talk about it, which is like what your show is and what this show is. It is not actually a great way to build muscle. It's not a great way to be a saint. It's just get some general ideas. Religious fatigue is a real idea and no one talks about it. Go make your kids pray two full if you're Sede 15 and if you're Novus Ordo 20, go make your kid pray
15 for
40
me.
decades of the rosary and see how he reacts to you. He's
Yeah.
not going to like you. Go make him sit in the mud for that long. He's not going to like you. Go let him eat candy. He's going to like you. This is a fact that we can actually measure. And that's the last thing I wanted to bring up. There's no way to measure our spiritual life like there is a way to measure our gym activity. We oftentimes take the spiritual life and just assume we can always add more, or assume we will always have the strength. And God has to humble us frequently. But in the gym life, whether I can move the bar depends on one thing: whether I had enough inspiration from caffeine that day.
Yeah, you've got enough white monster. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to. I mean, I guess you're a gorilla mind guy. It's a lot easier to measure things in the gym than it is in the spiritual life. You know, God will always be there for you, but you might not always be to add on more to your plate, and that's okay. It's about, you know, discerning where you are. I hate the term discernment at this point has been just destroyed by the Novus Ordo normies. But like we need to
I'm going
that
to
might be
discern whether I should bench today. I don't know. I gotta ask God.
this that that might be one of the terms I'm canceling as well. I think we're canceling Thomism. We're canceling discernment because they've evolved into just they don't mean anything anymore. It's at that point. But in a certain sense, you need to have prudence in everything. Have prudence with everything, and that includes your spiritual life, and it includes in the gym.
And Phil does a decade of groceries. He eats that much in a single sitting. 10 years worth of groceries.
He's getting huge.
Okay. I already did your plugs. I said you have a channel named Majorian or something, and you do a
Something like
show,
that.
the Latin peeps, on every
Yeah,
Monday.
I've like turned into their third host. I just came on one day and they're like, "All right, just keep coming on." I'm like, "Okay, fair enough."
Do you have any closing thoughts before we thank you and say goodbye?
Closing thoughts. Go to the gym, lift hard, you know, work hard, and in the same sense, you know, apply that progressive overload to the spiritual life. You know, you can constantly, you know, take what you can handle. Don't speak about what you don't know about. Stop calling yourself a Thomist. Block e-girls on Twitter or get blocked by them. Preferably get blocked by them. You could do a little bit of trolling. Trolling is good for the soul. I think Lefebvre talks about that somewhere.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's in one of the letters there. Yeah.
it's yeah. That's pretty much it. That's all I got. Yeah.
So my closing thoughts was this: you can always try harder because RPE 10 is St. Francis of Assisi throwing himself into the rose bush. Or as he has his famous story, when after working the whole day trying to convert people to the life of Christ, he goes home and his brothers in the house refuse to let him enter and turn him away into the street wherein it is raining and muddy. And he says, "This is true happiness. True happiness is reaching RPE 10 in your spiritual life. Most of us will never get there, so let's just try to do our best and rep out as many reps, as many Hail Marys, prayers, confessions, and Eucharists as we can before we die. Some of us are called to be the greatest of all time, and others are called just to be in the gym, consistently working out, giving witness to the greatness of the life that God has given us." Thank you so much for watching.